This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production.
Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. Thank you for being here with us today. This is a powerful topic. We are talking about your life, specifically creating the life that you want.
And knowing that you can always have a fresh start. Every day you have the opportunity to start over. And I think we just get so caught up in our past mistakes and how we didn't follow through. And we tell ourselves these hurtful things like, we're not this, or I could never, or I can't. All of these really powerful things that are going on in our mind. And sometimes we even say out loud that determine whether or not we take action.
Yeah. And as health coaches, Andrew and I hear the same thing every single day about, I didn't reach that goal. There's so much shame around not doing what we said we would do, right? Not keeping the promises that we make to ourselves. But we don't understand that every day is a different day. Life happens. Every season of life is different. We need different things. And what we ultimately need is to keep checking in on what we say is important. And based on what we want, that's going to change. Based on what we have available, that's going to change. And so today we want to talk to you about how do we reset our goals? How do we reassess what's going on so that we can continue to take messy action?
And this will continue to happen over and over and over. As a human being, it's really important that you know that this is a never-ending journey of renewal, of checking in on yourself. And so because we want you to be able to come back to this episode and come back to this process that can really be helpful, we created an acronym that you can come back to that can really help you reassess where you're at and take, like you said, messy action. I think a lot of times we think it has to be perfect. Okay, I'm going to wait till Monday. I'm going to wait till next month. I'm going to wait till the new year to start this because I want it to be a certain way. And that's hurting you. That's hindering your progress. That's negatively impacting your mental health, your physical health, and just pushing you backwards, especially when it comes to, the foods that you're eating, the energy you're around, your relationships, your relationship with money. I mean, you name it. Not addressing these things and putting it off is not helping anybody, especially you.
It could affect those around you, but ultimately it is hurting you. We want you to take action today, to leave this episode feeling like, okay, I know exactly what step I need to take, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to give you that momentum. We talk about setting goals every single day, and the key is to break it down into small steps. You've heard it. We will say it again, but the reason for that is because you are creating momentum. And so when you think about your goals and how they're not going the way you want, what can you do differently? What small thing can you choose to do to take ownership of the life you want? It's not about pleasing other people. It's not about what you should do, what you have to do. It's about what you want to do. And you want to have the life of your dreams. So we're going to give you this acronym, RENEW. We're going to walk you through it so that you can leave this episode feeling empowered.
Okay, to start with this acronym, RENEW, we got to start with R, and that is recognizing. And when you think about recognizing, what is that? That is awareness. That is recognizing that you can choose, you can change, and you can create. You can always recognize that today is a new day. It is. Your past does not define you. What other people think about you does not define you. Your old identity does not define you anymore. It doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And we hear it all the time, these I ams, like I am not a morning person. I am not good with money. I am not a good communicator. Like you name it. Stop saying those words because you're identifying who you are. And if you don't like that about yourself, stop saying it so you can do something about it.
Words are power. What we tell ourselves, we create. If you want to make a change, start noticing what you think, the thoughts that you're having, what you're saying out loud, because ultimately that is what you're creating.
I think of a Brooke Steele. She says that your thoughts need a supervisor.
Oh, or even Catherine being the word police. Like I've totally done that with my clients now. Shout out Catherine of like, no, we don't talk like that. Stop saying should, stop shoulding on yourself. And sometimes you need that objective perspective, you know, that conversation with someone else. And maybe that's what you can create in your own life. Asking your partner, asking your friend, like, hey, when you hear me talk down on myself, because everyone does it, call me out.
Or recognize it in other people. Sometimes it's easier to see it in other
Yes.
people. Your friend will be talking and be like, do not talk about my girlfriend like that, right? And then you can start to be like, oh my gosh, I do the same thing. I just caught myself, because you can see it in other people. Something else about recognizing I think is really important is you do a lot of things well. And you need to recognize what those things are and how you can keep them going well. Like if I'm taking good care of myself and I notice, oh, I was doing really good in January. I was feeling really good that month. What was in place? Like what's easy for you to do that's kind of harder for other people? And it's like one of your strengths. And how do you maybe start with that? Like, okay, I crushed that thing, even though it's like very easy for me. Recognize that so that stays in your routine. Like you don't need to change everything. You know, this is recognizing what you're good at, what you enjoy, and making sure that's in place too.
Yeah. Because when you have those things, you can easily go back to them, right? And that's your ticket to momentum. We all know that when you're in the swing of things, when things are going well, you're eating better, you're exercising, you're happier, like you just feel on fire, and then something happens and you're like, So instead of having shame and guilt around it, use curiosity. That's what Andrea is saying, is be curious with yourself of what was going well. When I was feeling energized, what was I doing differently? And instead of beating ourselves up for not doing that thing, that's when you choose that thing of, okay, how can I re-implement that? All right, I got to go to bed earlier. All right, I got to talk to my partner about how important this is so they can help me with the kiddos. Like looking through the lens of, there is always an answer. I just got to ask myself a better question.
And I think too, something that you're playing on is the backtracking, right? So this didn't happen because I was tired, so backtrack to sleep. Sleep didn't happen because I didn't get my kids to bed on time. So recognizing your patterns and recognizing kind of this waterfall, like where did it start? Like if I do this, if we aim to eat dinner by this time, then we can do homework and bedtime routine by this time. Then I can do my self-care before bed by this time. And you're recognizing your patterns. And recognition is just awareness. Where am I? What's going well? Recognizing that I have the power to shift this. I can really make a change because I am capable of this.
And in order to do this, you need to engage, which is the next one, engage in reflection time. Have scheduled time where you're sitting down to think about what you want to experience, what you're feeling, what needs to shift, what you want to be intentional about. You know, thinking about all these goals you have, if you're not actively revisiting them, making them the forefront, putting them in the forefront of your mind, you know, having them in your weekly to-do list. We've talked about the categories of improvement, the Tony Robbins weekly time management system that we're using of tracking your goals. You cannot manage what you don't measure. Another Tony Robbins quote, but it has always stuck with me. If I am not actively sitting down to engage in reflection time, in tracking, looking at how I'm doing with things, it's going to slip.
And it can look so many different ways. Some people, even the word tracking is like triggering to them. They feel like, oh, that's too much. That sounds stuffy. That sounds like micromanaging my life.
You're making it stuffy.
Right. Exactly. This is all about kind of thinking of things in a more open-minded new way. You want a new way of doing things. And I think reflection time is something that, you know, sometimes people will place it at the end of their day. You know, how did my day go? What got in my way of my goals? Some people like to start their day with it. Some people just have to do it where their free time is. And so I would encourage you to, you know, play with where this engagement and reflection happens, because everybody's different. Everybody's schedules are different. But what you're really doing is you're aligning with the highest version of yourself. You are thinking about, okay, like this is my time for me to think about, who do I want to be? How do I want to feel? What can I put in my path that will really help me? And then as the days go by, you'll see like, oh, I had a really rough Tuesday. Things have gotten better. Or I'm so glad that I did XYZ because today's a better day. Or I'm crying onto this piece of paper because I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what to put on this paper right now. And I think when you reflect so much, as you and I have been doing this year, you can have more grace for yourself. You see, like when you take a break from life and you write down truly how you're doing You're not pretending to be okay for your kids or because you have to go out in public to go to the grocery store. Like, you can just be your raw self. And then as you know that, you know, in this process, you're trying to renew, you can really think about, what are the possibilities for me? You know, who have I been kind of admiring lately? And what is it about them that I want to implement into my life? Just starting to like openly think, write down how much money you want to make, write down something that you keep not doing, but you know, you really want to, right? And so it's just reflecting on all of it. It's really thinking about, you know, I keep making this mistake, and writing some forgiveness. You know, if somebody else could write on your paper a statement of forgiveness for you not following through, what would they say? You know, I think you can use a reflection time. You know, it could be prayer, it could be meditation, it could be whatever kind of gets you to tune deeper into what you want.
Yeah, when I think of reflection, I think of reviewing what I've been working hard towards, right? So that I can see what I need to shift, but also to celebrate. That is such an important piece of what am I doing well? Like, we interviewed Angela Kerrigan about imposter syndrome and inner critic, and she gave us the exercise of writing your to-did list. Like, instead of your to-do list and you never complete the whole thing, like, what about what you did do? And I think that speaks to the importance of continuing with that momentum, because if we see what we didn't get done, it defeats everything, because we internalize that of, of course I didn't do this. This is, you know, I'm never going to be able to do this. So thinking about what you did get done, using that as part of your reflection time to celebrate. And so I like to use that time to celebrate my wins, to look at, you know, my categories of improvement, but also to free write. We've been experimenting a lot with journaling this year, and it is so powerful. And a lot of our clients are like, I don't even know what to write. I don't even know what to put on the paper. So looking up different journal prompts that speak to you, like literally just Googling, there are so many, but not viewing that time as work. You know, I think it can look like just another check mark, and then you're defeating the whole purpose.
I would say look at it more like a compass. Writing your fears down, knowing like, what am I afraid of? And then using that to navigate like, oh, that's what's holding me back. Okay, how can I overcome that? You know, what is your compass? What is giving you the direction in your life? And if it's anything else but you and your faith and whatever that is, I would encourage you to dig deeper into this reflection. And I also think a good starting point, something I actually read in the source, I keep bringing that up, but it's how your brain works. This is all about how your brain works, is if you don't know where to start, it's starting with gratitude. But what Dr. Tara Swartz said to do was to put on top of the page, my abundant life. And then you write whenever you think of it or whenever you want to, the things that are going great in your life or you're grateful for or you love about yourself or whatever it is. And you can just start there, just like writing things that you like. It's never going to hurt you or anybody else if you're grateful for the things that are going well.
Yeah, I think focusing on that helps you fall in love with your life. You get excited about your life, and then you notice what you don't really like, and you're like, I don't like the way that makes you feel. Let's change that. What could I do to change that? But it's important that you don't beat yourself up for how things have been going, right? And that's where our next one comes in, neutralize. You got to neutralize these feelings of shame, of fear, of doubt, because what they are, like Andrea said, it's a compass. It's trying to tell you something. So digging into, what is that fear telling me? What is this doubt telling me? And with neutralize, like, and this is, I think, the key component to what we're trying to say today is that if you visualize your life having a fresh start, you're wiping the slate clean. If I could do it differently, what would it look like? If I could completely do a fresh start, what would my relationship look like? What would my bank account look like? What would I be spending money on if I could just start all over? You know, if I could start over with what I'm eating or how this process of shopping, planning, prepping is going, what would I do differently, right? And just finding that place of letting go of these negative feelings, right? That the mistakes, they're gone. You wipe the slate, you wash the window, whatever you want to think about where I've got a fresh start. It might be
when you put it into action, it might not feel like completely like a fresh start, but you're trying to get your mind to that place of, I can choose this fresh start. I can really let go of those things. It might be a process, but I will be reflecting about it, right? And I'm going to think, okay, maybe the ideal version, what would it look like if I were to start all over? Because then you can cultivate those new feelings. You can replace that fear and shame of the past with the hope of the future of, okay, maybe I don't totally feel capable of this, but I would love to be. Mm-hmm. And that's where, I would encourage you to continue to tune into us and anybody that you follow that is inspiring, mm-hmm. that will make you feel like you can. Mm-hmm. Because if you're following people that are making you feel like you can't, or you're in a headspace where you're believing that you can't because you see someone living this life that you don't think is possible, tune in and follow people or have people in your circle that will make you feel like you can, mm-hmm. or at least believe in you, or can give you kind of that support instead of continually feeling like that is too far-fetched.
Yeah, follow those people that are going to make you believe it is possible and give you those strategies on how to create it. All right, when you think about what you do want, someone who has those things, how are they acting? Because then you can start to put yourself in that position. What would they be doing if I want to show up as her, as him, whatever it may be? How do I need to start showing up? Right, you have this picture of where you're moving towards versus where you're moving away from. Like, stop looking at the past. You look in a rearview mirror. Where do you go? You crash because you're not focusing on where you're headed. I always think of that analogy because it's like, don't stop. Just because that's where I was does not mean it's where I'm going. Mm-hmm. The more I focus on that, the crappier I feel. And so stop. Only I can shift what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, but I think also an elephant in the room is that when you do shift or change, or when you are trying to drop these identities, you think about other people because you changing does affect other people. It could be positive, it could be negative, but when you're wiping the slate clean, you've got to imagine that how other people perceive you or what you've done in the past, how much you've given of yourself and you just can't anymore, and that's going to affect other people. Or if I stop drinking alcohol, or if I stop eating pizza when we do that every Friday night or whatever, it's going to affect other people. And the point I want to make about other people is that if they are in your circle and you're going to change, what you do shouldn't matter to people as much as you think it will. You might have to have a conversation because it will change things. But if people truly love you for who you are, your new behavior could just be like interesting. It could be like, oh, okay. Do you want me to pick up a salad when I order the pizza?
Well, and it might be foreign to them because this is new for you. Therefore, it's new for them. So having that conversation of why you're doing this, putting it on you of, I am feeling like crap lately and I'm so over it. And I know I feel better when I eat this way. I'd love your support. Like, it's been tough, but I know I need to do it.
And your friends and family will be like, oh, I've been thinking that too. I've been wanting to do that too. Like, everybody always needs a fresh start. Everybody needs renewal. Everybody needs it at some point, probably weekly, probably daily. Who knows? It's so when you express this to someone, they're going to be like, oh, I should do that too. And it might be something completely different for them, but it's a new way of connecting with people. Hey, I thought about this deeper about why I'm doing this, and it makes me feel this way. They might have no clue, and they might be so happy they know so they can support you.
Yeah. You transforming in the best way possible is giving those around you permission to do the same. So you might feel uncomfortable making these changes, like you're affecting other people. But what Andrew's trying to say is those real people in your life who love you, care about you, they want to see you win, just like you want to see them win. And so if they are not on board, maybe that's what you need to use your reflection time for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those little jabs. Okay, I thought we were drinking buddies, but I guess not. That has to do with them and their own insecurities. That is not about you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't need to be alcohol. I just keep using that because I feel like that's an easy one that a lot of people struggle with. You and I have had a lot of experience with when we give it up. It's like those little jabs, and you really have to separate, okay, anything negative said to me is a reflection of something in them, and that takes work. So like Brooke said, reflect on that too. Reflect on your relationships and how you can have a healthier, stronger one if that's the case.
And those are always going to come up, like those comments, those feelings. And so having this dedicated time, not to keep going back to reflection time, but it is so important because that's your time to focus on what you need to feel whole, to center yourself. Like for me, I have to do it in the morning because that's my fresh start. That's my clean slate of, all right, let's pour my cup up. I'm giving all day to people, talking to members, helping people up level their life. And where is my time for me in there? It needs to be uninterrupted time. It's my sacred place. I've romanticized it. Terry Cole talks about your Zen den, and like that's my living room now. I have this whole routine around it of I put on my fireplace. I pump up my temperature because it's cold as heck here in Minnesota still. And I've created a place where I love it and I look forward to it.
You're romanticizing it.
Yes.
It does sound kind of romantic. It's like a date
Right.
with yourself.
It sounds silly, but it's so powerful. And so people just try it, please. And let me know what you think, how it goes.
All right. Next up is the next E, which is experiment. This entire thing, your whole life, every day, everything you're doing, it's an experiment. Mm-hmm. Nothing is set in stone. Nothing has to go a certain way. You're going to learn things about yourself and your habits and your tendencies that we've got to try and take the judgment away and just know this is an experiment. Whoop, that didn't go well. I really thought because I used to work out 5 days a week that I was going to do that this week. And holy crap, I only did twice. Experiment. What can we change for next week? Give yourself some grace. Experiment. Keep trying different things. And sometimes it's a full pivot and sometimes it's a small tweak. But this is a learning experience. And we have to allow ourselves to tell ourselves that was an experiment. And I have the ability to shift something to make it go a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Here's what I learned. Here's what I liked. Here's what I really didn't like. The willingness to experiment is where the growth comes in. And that's what this is all about. It's about growing into the version of who we want to be. We feel better. We feel more confident. We're able to give more love. We love ourselves more, right? So this is all about curiosity. Whenever I leave a coaching conversation, I'm always like, what do you want to experiment with this month? Mm-hmm. And it takes the pressure away from it because it's, oh yeah, what do I want versus I feel like I have to do this. It's like, no. What are you open to experimenting with? Mm-hmm. And if we're not growing, we're dying. Think about anything in nature. Like we need to constantly be growing, but growing in a way that's fun, that's exciting, that gives us more life. That's what it's about.
You're the scientist of the experiment. And scientists choose different experiments all the time and tweak them.
What's your equation?
Right. And sometimes the experiment turns out into a new invention you didn't know was going to happen. And I think that's super important. And the reason why we have monthly coaching calls is because some weeks it goes bad and some weeks it goes great. And the whole idea is that you are recognizing your patterns in this. You're recognizing what gets in your way. You're recognizing you might set the bar way too high, and it's sometimes like a self-sabotage technique of like, you already don't feel like you're worthy of things. And so let's just prove to ourselves that we don't think we're worthy of things. So let's set the bar way too high. And the whole idea with experimenting and what we love about this is this can build your confidence because it's all about following through. No matter how messy it looks, you will be proud of yourself that you followed through, even if it was twice a week compared to 5 times a week. Even if you didn't meal plan 1 week, but you did 2. It's not perfection. It is progress. And when you follow through, it's building that confidence inside of yourself that, okay, I don't even want to be perfect because I don't even know what that is. But if I focus on just following through with these things that I know are calling me in some way, in an experimental way, I can completely transform my life.
Mm-hmm. Something powerful I keep thinking about that has been really helpful for me is when I view it as an experiment, it's not overwhelming. And so when I think about what I want to commit to, because I know that following through helps with my confidence, I'm very specific as to what I'm committing to. I'm not committing to 5 days a week when I haven't worked out 1 day in the last year. I'm committing to, all right, I'm going to stretch 5 minutes a day because that's going to help with the momentum. It's going to help with the confidence. Okay, I can do that. For me this year, it's about up-leveling my finances. And so every day I have on my to-do list one thing that's going to set me up to be financially free. And I can pick whatever that is. I have like this whole thing of, what I want to do and all these steps in this massive spreadsheet that gets me excited. But each day it's like, all right, am I making progress? Because when I check that off the list, it's something, it can be so small, but in return, it's like, hell yeah, I did something. I took ownership, and there's nothing that feels better than that.
Yeah. And I think something too with this like 5 days a week versus 2 is sometimes that's not the goal. You set that because that's what you want. But sometimes it's digging more into what's going to make that happen. Kind of how I talked about backtracking earlier is, okay, I want to work out 5 days a week, but what's getting in the way? Or what could help me be more likely to work out?
What needs to happen in order for me to be successful with going to the gym?
Yes. And some examples of that could be make sure that I wear, like maybe it's buy a Fitbit or an Apple Watch to track my steps because that I love math. I love numbers. I have the means to buy it. I'm going to do it. Sometimes it's moving your phone off your nightstand because then you won't hit the snooze button.
I have my phone in my bathroom. And before I even go off my phone, before I turn off, I hit the lights on. So it wakes me up.
Nice.
Because if my phone is next to me, I will hit snooze. Okay,
Yes.
keep going. Fun fact.
Lay out your workout clothes the night before.
Wear them to bed.
Wear them to bed. I do that. It could be the night before you go to bed, you write down exactly what you want to do in the gym and what time that will be, because then you're like, I know when my alarm goes off, why I need to wake up because I need to be at the gym by a certain time in order to do this. And so it's like getting, like you said, very specific is so important because as you experiment, you will learn that it's really the most micro steps that make you feel good, that make you feel healthy, that make you improve your blood pressure. I talked to someone today and he had a massive heart attack. His genetics are just terrible. And both his parents died in their 50s of a heart attack. His uncle died of a heart attack in his 50s. And so his genes are not in his favor. And a lot of us have that. I have that. My HDL is always terrible, which is like cardiovascular exercise. And I do that a lot. So anyways, knowing that your genetics might be playing against you. And these micro steps can really help your future out when it comes to your physical health, right? Because that is something we have to think about. We talk about our mental health all the time. But I think it's so important when you're not active, you're not allowing yourself to get outside. You're not even going for a 5-minute walk a day. And I understand there's things we feel like we have to do. But if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be around to do it. And if you have to think about somebody else that you want to be here for, go for it. Reflect about it. But we've got to get moving. We've got to think about the micro things like drinking the water, getting moving, getting some sunlight, eating a vegetable. Like we have to think about these little things because they will bite us in the butt eventually. And we all want to be around for a long period of time.
Those habits you're talking about, the ones that don't necessarily serve us, they make us feel good in the moment. And it's really hard for people to think about, how would my future self want to feel? And I'm going to pick that delayed gratification, right? So the last one of this acronym is wipe away. The W in renew is wipe away. So wipe away these feelings that don't serve you. Condition yourself to think about those long-term feelings. The feeling of when you're able to walk your daughter down the aisle. The feelings of, oh, I ran across that finish line. Those feelings that allow you to live a better life and not feel better in the moment. Because immediately what feeling comes after that feeling.
And I think a lot of what you're saying is like the feeling of being proud of yourself. And if you can't even if that doesn't resonate with you, somebody else being proud of you, like what is that feeling and what would it take for you to feel that? And I think sometimes we set that standard too high, but the feelings we want are what we want to keep and everything else we want to wipe away. And I understand things happen and we can't always control those things, but you do have control over who you're around, wiping away negative energy, wiping away the people that you're following that bring you down, wiping away social media completely if you need to.
The negative thoughts you're telling yourself, checking yourself.
What's eating up your time that is not building you up into this version of yourself you want to be?
Yeah. And if you don't have energy, it is damn near impossible to make a change. All right. So thinking about if you are not working out right now, if you have zero energy, What needs to shift to give you some energy so that you can pour into you? It is all about energy. These feelings, it's about having more energy, feeling good. What does feeling good bring you? It brings you more energy. You want to do more of it. And so it might be for you thinking about, how do I feel more energy? Like, that's what I need. And does eating that chocolate bar, does drinking that alcohol, does that really bring you energy? And if you're feeling like crap, speaking from experience, all I wanted was energy. And are my choices helping me get that energy?
Yeah. Something I think about too is your physical space. What am I looking at and how's it making me feel? So for me, a big part of energy is decluttering and cleaning and organizing, because no matter what anybody says, you might identify, I'm a messy person, and we're challenging you to change that, right? If that's not serving you, if that's making you feel overwhelmed or negative about yourself, even though your parents told you that your whole life growing up, you're super messy, you're not a messy person. Your habits, sure.
You're telling yourself.
Right. Like, we can change those things. And for me, I like to ask clients, what does your space look like? And if you could just make one room that you're in a lot reflect more of how you want to feel, what would that look like? Is it just having a cozy blanket next to you because you really like touch? Is it looking at something? And with these goals you're setting, having them around you, reminding yourself, like, I wrote that down because it's important to me. And it's going to be in that space I'm in a lot. If I work in this room or I sleep in this room, I want it to be the first thing I see when I wake up, the last thing I see before I go to bed. I want it in a spot that my kids can see, my husband or wife, partner can see, because then they know it's important to me and it's not a secret. Because a big part of this is we think we can't follow through with things, so we don't want anybody to know our goal because, like, we'll probably fail. And I don't want people looking down on me again, or you perceive that they are. And so in this, it's up to you on how public you want to be. But I would encourage you to just, if you can form accountability with anybody, start with yourself and put it somewhere, and at least show yourself with the physical act of writing it down on a whiteboard or piece of paper, on your computer, wherever makes sense for you, where you can see this and remind yourself, like, I am worth this time. I wrote this for a reason. I don't want to feel this way. Maybe today's not the day, but I'm going to plan when I'm going to start this action in the morning, whatever it may be, to really remind yourself of how important these goals are to you.
Whether it's your finances, your health, your relationships, you're constantly setting goals because we want things to change so we can feel better. If we're happy with it, we're thinking about, what do I need to do to keep it this way? That's a goal in itself, right? And so with Renew, R, recognizing, E, engage, N, neutralize, E, experiment, W, wipe away. This isn't necessarily in linear order. This is if you're thinking about, I really need to reset a goal, I need to do something differently. You grab one of these. You think about, all right, what can I experiment with? All right, I need to recognize, what can I choose differently here? All right, I got to engage in some reflection time. Let me schedule that in. And so choose one of these to help you move forward, to get that momentum, to live the life that you deserve. Life is too short. We only have one. You have the power to choose what you want it to look like.
So if the people are looking for the gold stars, today we've got 5 of them. Recognizing, engaging, neutralizing, experimenting, and wiping away. And what we want you to know, and we want to hit home, is that you need to love yourself through this process and give yourself permission to want new things. It's okay to want something new, to try new things, and to change, no matter who thinks you shouldn't or who you think thinks you shouldn't.
And just because you want to change doesn't mean you don't love yourself. I think that's a bad rep that personal development gets, is like, can't you just be happy with where you're at, with who you are? Like, I am happy, I'm content, I'm fulfilled, but I'm not satisfied because I believe that there's a higher version of me, and there always will be. It's about the journey. It's about the chase. There is no destination. And so I just want to say that just because you want to up level does not mean there's anything wrong with you.
And a big piece of this is identity. And we've got to recognize what we're identifying with. And just because you've identified one way in the past does not mean it needs to define your future.
Amen, sister. All right. And your piece of gold this week is from us. none other than your girls here at Gold Ivy Health Co. You can always choose again, but this time, choose yourself.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.